Hello, let us talk about NodeMCU in the next series of videos. So, as you see in the image here, NodeMCU is an IoT development board which can be used for any of your IoT applications. So, which involves basically wireless application like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and this basically is a low cost development platform. So if you are thinking of an IoT application and a low cost application, you can directly think of using a node MCU. That's how much popular this particular board is. So what is node MCU? So node MCU, the full form of node MCU is node microcontroller unit. Basically, this name comes from the actual open source firmware Lua, based on which the firmware on this module is built. Like example, if you buy this Node MCU, by default, this comes with a loaded open source firmware based on Lua. So you can write further scripts based on that, and instead of the normal C programming language that we use, we can use Lua programming. But considering that C programming is what most people are used to, people don't use Lua much. So this NodeMCU, if you see, is based on esp8266 chip, which basically is a Wi-Fi based chip. So this has a variant of ESP8266 which is called ESP-12E inside the module that you see here. So if you buy a Node MCU, you can either be having ESP-12 or ESP-12E based module. E stands for enhanced. So we will talk about the differences later. So these two are the major chips on which this Node MCU is based on. And another important point, as we talk about the ESP8266, so ESP8266 has that TCP/IP stack integrated, which helps us to build the Wi-Fi applications easily. So you need not write your stack. You can just directly use this, write your application code using the stack that is already inbuilt into ESP8266. So very easy to use, right? And then another important thing, how do you program the node MCU? So node MCU can be programmed using two options. One is basically if you want to write in a normal C programming language, you go for Arduino IDE, or if you want to use the Lua scripting language, which we said, there is an IDE called ESP Loader, which is the IDE for that scripting language. So, but normally most of the designers and programmers use Arduino IDE, as people are well aware of this IDE, as also people use Arduino boards a lot. Now, if we come to the pinout of the node MCU, which is a very important thing to know, right? So if you are selecting the node MCU for your application, you need to know what are all the pins available before you jump into your application. So if you see from the bottom, this node MCU has these pinouts as shown in these birch stick that is mounted on top of this board, this black board, and it has 16 GPIO pins. Okay, but again, these are multiplexed with other features, so you cannot use all the 16 GPIOs. And then you have one analog pin, okay, and you have two UARTs using which you can program. Using one of the UART, you can program the node MCU, but we will be using the USB here to directly program from your PC. And then it also has SPI, as you can see here, and basically this chip operates on 3.3 volts. So from the USB, you give 5 volts and you have an onboard regulator which converts that 5 volts into 3.3. So the entire node MCU operation is based on 3.3 volts. So in that case, we can say that the analog input that you give here, the maximum voltage that you can give is only 3.3 volts, beyond which any voltage, the value gets saturated. And then moving to the contents that are there on the board. The first thing, as we mentioned, NodeMCU is based on esp8266 based chip, which again is a variant of esp8266. So this is a module, and you have the onboard antenna here, which is again a very important thing, right? You need not bother about your antenna design or anything. Just integrate this module into your application and directly use it as per your need. Very easy to use, right? And then another important point, NodeMCU supports both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which is a very, very important point to remember. If you have just a ESP8266 chip, you have only support for Wi-Fi. But if you have ESP12E, you have both support for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which is a very important thing. So remember that this ESP8266 is a 32-bit microcontroller, RISC microcontroller, which is like most commonly used in the industry, considering the cost factor at which it comes, as we mentioned earlier in the talk. So a very, very important point to remember. And then when you come to the contents that are there on this node MCU, we mentioned that there is a ESP12E module with a onboard antenna, and then you have the bulk sticks with all the pinouts. And then we mentioned that we have a USB powered, yeah, we can power the board using the USB. So you have the connector here, which can be used to program as well as power the board. And then you have a USB to TTL converter on the board. This is CP2102 based converter from Scilabs, which converts the USB to the TTL. And then you have the LED, which you can play around on the board. And then, as we mentioned, this particular board works on 3.3 volts. So when you give 5 volts from your USB bus, this needs to be converted to 3.3, which is done by the onboard 3.3 volt regulator that is present on the board. So to understand this entire scenario, simply this node MCU is one of the important thing is low cost and ease of use, and where it can be used with Arduino. The libraries are available, so lot of things which plays a factor in selecting the node MCU for your next IoT application. So also the community is very big. You get a lot of support, lot of data over the internet on this node MCU board. Thank you.